pandemic got us into a reflective space and made us look inward to see what we can do for the world at large. As a self-expression coach, I became a catalyst for women and started Vani, a one-on-one coaching program for women on finding their voice, to speak up, to be visible. As a storyteller, I spotted there were many ordinary people amongst us leading extraordinary lives, making a difference to the world, and they needed to be heard. Thus was born You and I with Rashmi Shetty, where amazing personal journeys with their uniqueness and individuality are showcased. A reaffirmation of the fact, open your eyes wider, the world is far more beautiful when we acknowledge the presence of both you and I. Our guest today is Dr. Arti Datta, the founding artistic director of Mudra Dance Studio, Muttontown, New York, and the president of the Mudra Foundation, Art for a Cause. Dr. Arti was initiated into Bharatanatyam early in her childhood in India. An alumnus of Kalasadan, one of the premier cultural institutes in Mumbai, India, Dr. Arti was the disciple of late Guru Shri Mani. Dr. Arti Datta has successfully choreographed and directed several multimedia productions. On the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the dance school, as a way of integrating her passion for dance with a desire to give back, she founded the non-profit, the Mudra Foundation, Art for a Cause. Dr. Arti was recognized by the India Association of Long Island as one of the most influential people in the Indian American community in New York and has been felicitated on numerous occasions for her contribution to arts in the US. Dr. Arti Datta serves on the board of the Long Island Arts Alliance and volunteers her time at New York Center. She continues to teach dance at the Mudra Dance Studio, Muttontown. Listen in as Dr. Arti shares her journey from the logical world of science to the creative world of dance. Hi, Dr. Arti Datta. It was such a pleasure catching up with you recently. And to know the journey that you've been on is something that fascinated me. Welcome to You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Really a pleasure to see someone like you who could have easily gone on the said path, but heard an inner voice and inner calling and went on that. So let's go on your journey, starting from your childhood before you reach the Dr. Arti Datta, that one part of the world knows you as. And the entire exploration of your life and your journey is what we'll be doing in this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you, first of all, for having me. And I know I've been following your journey for a while, and kudos to you. Congratulations to you. I'm amazed. And it was lovely catching up with you in New York not too long ago, just a couple of weeks ago. And happy to be here.
Likewise, because always conversations with you are interesting. There's so much about your life that I'm fascinated by. So let's start from your childhood. Where in India did you grow up and how did your journey?
I grew up in Mumbai, in a suburb called Ghatkopar. That's where my parents, Amma and Papa, started their life. So that's where I did up to my ninth standard, I was there. That's where I was also introduced to dance. So basically what happened was I just had a normal, happy childhood like most people of my generation. We just had, we just had a good time for the most part. Everyone just enjoyed ourselves. We had a regular school, regular hours in school. Post-school was a wonderful time, kids getting out, playing, having a fantastic time.
No social media.
No social media, no nothing. And this part of the childhood is something that we miss for our children when they were growing up. But it is what it is. And really growing up, I only had two things in my life. One was studies, which I was very, very devoted to. And the second was dance. I really did not have a third thing on my plate. Again, unlike kids today, for better or for worse. I'm not saying one is good or the other. But if anything, the third major component on my plate at that time as a kid was my dog, Laika. She was my first, and I've just been a huge dog lover ever since. But as it happened, there was a relatively young dance, or I should say arts school called Kalasadan that had opened shop not too far from where we lived. And my mom, Amma, being very enthusiastic about these things, took me and my best friend, her name is Nandini. She took Nandini and me to this dance, to the school, where in one room, they were teaching classical dance. Bharatanatyam was being taught. In the other room, classical music, Carnatic music was being taught. So she would take both of us to one room, we'd finish 1 hour, and both of us would schlep to the other room, finish up at the other. And as luck would have it, I could not hold a tune to save my life. It just didn't happen for me, Carnatic music. Whereas dance, I took to dance like fish to water. It was not a problem. And interestingly, my friend, with her, it was the opposite. She found dance so complicated. But music, oh my God. Now, how many years later? 35, 40 years later, she's still a fabulous singer. So it's interesting that we both went our separate paths. And I guess at a very subliminal manner, we listened to our bodies, listened to who we were. We were not forced like some of the parents do to kids today. I was never forced to take up music, and she danced, I guess. So I always laugh. I always say that I'm proof that dance and music don't reside on the same gene. You can be good at one or the other. So dance happened, took it to fruition, went on to do my Arangetram at a very young age of 12. Studies happened. I went on to complete my PhD in cancer research. So I took both to fruition, I guess. Good. And that was it, if that answers your question.
Oh, yes, it does. And when it came to studies, did you see dance helping you in your studies? Because when you have an extracurricular, and it is not like today's times where you have a car, a driver, all at your disposal. And it is traveling spaces, going, spending time, coming back, and dance is a kind of cardio. So you're tired as well. How did you balance out school and your art?
You know what, Rashmi? I don't think we ever thought about it along those lines. Amma said dance, we dance. I come from the generation where you just listen to your parents. They know best, right? They knew, and she guided me well, and I'm thankful for that. I would practice every single day. Before going to school, I would have my dance practice. I remember, as a little girl, I was 7th, 8th grade, I would wear, we used to wear petticoats under our uniforms. I don't know if you're younger than me. I don't know if you remember that, but we used to wear white petticoats under our uniforms. So I would wear my petticoat and practice. There was never two ways about it. There was never a question of, do I have time today to do it? Will I be late for school? Blah, blah, blah. Nothing. I just did it. We just did it. In fact, I remember much later in life when my girls were growing up, asking my mom, how did you manage to make me do it? And she said, it was easy. I just asked you to do it. So those are simpler days, simpler times. It didn't work with my girls for sure. It was never an issue. I had dance twice a week. In fact, again, being simpler days, those days I would get on to the public bus. I would take the bus to Sion. Sion was where the bulk of Kalasadan was, the main center, which is true even now. The center is now a good 70, 75 years old. My Guruji, Guru Mani, in fact, yesterday was his birthday. He would have turned 102 yesterday. Okay. Yeah. So to this day, every 5th of September, they have a little function. In honor of Guruji, and it happened yesterday as well. So I would just take the bus to Sion, do my thing, come back home, and get on with life. It was never an issue.
Looking back, just this is a question that as you're talking and how much you're enjoying talking about dance itself. Looking back now, was dance the reason you were doing well in studies, or doing well in studies came very naturally to you and dancing was just that outlet for you to be yourself?
Oh, what can I say, Rashmi? I'm just a genius. No, just kidding. Dance or music can only help your studies, without a doubt. It has been shown time and time again that mathematicians are natural musicians. So there is a connect there. In fact, Albert Einstein was an accomplished violinist. I'm sure, I mean, it's out there, you know. So there is a natural ebb and flow to that equilibrium. I think music, and therefore dance, probably activates parts of your brain which are also involved in learning hardcore math, science, you know, those concepts, conceptually. And I was at an impressionable age where it might have affected. Studies are only now being conducted. You know, they have MRI imaging studies now being conducted with, you know, they're studying musicians and they're studying mathematicians to see the same parts of their brains get activated when they're exposed to these stimuli. So maybe it did, maybe it did not. I don't know. That connection between math, dance, music, and I like to think of it as a universal language, right? Music is a universal language. Dance is a universal language. So is math. 2 + 3 is 5 in India. It's 5 in China. It's 5 in the US. It's an absolute. So that part, that's true of music as well. I'm talking about Carnatic music and classical dance here.
So, yes, we have the absolute truth, but there is also an absolute truth as far as careers go. By the time today, when the child reaches the board exam years of 10th standard, most of the extracurricular activities are all cut and it's focused completely on studies. So, that is an absolute truth in India till date. All extracurricular activities take a backseat when it's board exam years, 10th and 12th. So was it similar to you as well that when you came towards your 10th, you said at 12 you finished your engagement. Did you pursue dance post that, or it was study focused only post that?
I pursued dance. That said, I must say, when I was in 10th standard, my dad got transferred outside of Bombay. So I lost my link with my main, you know, with my main, the root of my dance. I did lose contact there. So we moved to a town called Bhusawal near Jalgaon. We were there for 2 years and then we moved back to Bombay. And when we moved back, I did resume my activities again. By now I was in college. I just starting college, 12th grade, you know, first year BS, whatever. And I resumed my activities. Yeah. But by then I was, you know, grown.
Okay, so you resumed your activities as in you joined back the dance classes?
I joined back the dance class. I was performing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So through your college years also you were back on the stage?
I never stopped, Rashmi. I never stopped. I won't say there was a time. I think from the time I started, which was at the age of 5 or 6, till today, the only time I may have stopped dancing was during the time when I was pregnant for both the girls.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I continued. When we moved to London, we were in London for a period of 3 years. I taught and learned at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan over there. In fact, my paths crossed with Monisha Patil, who's the daughter of Vimla Patil. You know, our paths crossed, and she was running a dance school at the time. She was settled in London. She was running a dance school. And I was, you know, kind of not formally teaching, but kind of sort of teaching with her. And she invited me to join her completely. She said, you know what, just quit science. Don't worry about it. What's a big deal? Come, this is going to be fun. Come, you know, come on a journey with me, kind of. At that time, I was doing my postdoc at Hammersmith Hospital, my postdoctoral studies at Hammersmith Hospital. And I could not imagine, even by a wild stroke of imagination, me quitting science and taking up dance. So what she offered me sounded so outlandish. We just laughed, had a good time, and we moved on. If at that time anybody had told me that years from now I would be doing dance full time and not science, I wouldn't have believed it.
Okay, so you did your PhD in India, and where did you do it? And why did cancer, you said that you did it in cancer. Why did cancer research actually interest you?
Good question. I don't know if I specifically went towards cancer research. I completed my BSc and MSc from Wilson College in Bombay. And the logical next step was to do my PhD. So I did apply to a couple of different schools, couple of different organizations for my PhD. And somehow things worked out with Cancer Research Institute, CRI, which is part of Tata Memorial Center. So Tata Memorial Center has TMH, which is Tata Memorial Hospital, and CRI, which is Cancer Research Institute. They were both together in Tata Memorial Center, TMC. I liked the project there. Everything seemed to, we talk about the universe deciding these things for us. Everything aligned for me over there. The planets aligned for me to go and to be part of a PhD program at CRI. I didn't know it then. It just so happened. Now, when I look back, now that you're asking me, now when I look back, that's where I met my future husband. So, the universe probably had a plan for me. But yes, I was under the mentorship of Dr. Anand Rao, who, bless his heart, passed away very recently. I was there for 5 years, the PhD program. And then at the end of which I moved to London, England, to do my first postdoctoral fellowship in Hammersmith, as I mentioned. And mind you, this is before the kids arrived, so I was still neck deep in science. Dance was happening. I was learning at Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. I was even teaching there, but it was just on the side. But for the most part, it was science. So we were there for 3 years, and then we moved to New York. Both of us moved to New York. Again, I was working here, continued my postdoc at NYU, New York University Medical Center. And then the bachas came. Baby number 1 came, baby girl. And then baby number 2 came, baby girl. And as they were growing, when obviously I wanted them to learn dance, obviously. And during that period, again, while I was not teaching on my own, I was helping another friend of mine who had her own dance school. I was helping her teach her students, just for the fun of it, because it was very vital part of my life. So I started teaching. She was a Kuchipudi dance teacher, actually. And she wanted, Kuchipudi dancers need a strong Bharatanatyam base. So I was doing that for her students, just for the fun of it. And believe it or not, when my older daughter turned 5, 6, I started looking for a Bharatanatyam dance teacher for her, and I couldn't find anyone. Now there are several here in the New York area. But I'm talking 25 years ago, there were no teachers in the immediate vicinity. And I wanted them to continue with the style that I had learned, which is the Vazhuvoor tradition. That's the style that I had learned. And I was looking for a Vazhuvoor teacher. And I found there was one, Kamla Narayan, madam. She was there. She lived a little further away from where we were. And she was not willing to come and teach unless I had 5 students. And we ourselves had just moved to Long Island at the time. And my older one was 6, the younger one was 4. And I couldn't find 5 students. We had just moved ourselves, I found 2, I found 3, but no, she wanted 5. And I get it now. So, and then I said, what am I doing? Why wait? Here I am. I've taught so much. I've got some decent teaching experience behind me. Why not teach my girls? Though I was not keen on teaching them. I don't think mothers, I don't think it's a good idea for moms to teach their kids anything. I just wanted to be a cheerleader for them and have them learn a formal art like this with somebody else. As luck would have it, I ended up teaching them. It started with 1 kid, started with 2 kids. Next thing you know, 5 kids, 10 kids, 20 kids, 40 kids. Before I knew it, I had a website. We were putting up annual shows, and I'm like, oh my God, I have a dance school now, and the whole thing was strictly by way of mouth. Not a single second of advertising, not a single second, because I never intended to be teaching at all. And even then I'm thinking up to a point, and sooner or later, once they grow up, I'll go back to science. Well, the universe had other plans for me. That never happened. And 2 months ago, we celebrated our 20th anniversary. 20th anniversary teaching dance. Yes.
Okay. So we'll come into your dance journey because that's what fascinated me. But I want you to take a couple of steps back to the moment when you were working, you were doing your postdoctorate, even after coming into the US from the UK. Once your girls came in, you took a sabbatical. But was the idea of the sabbatical that you're going back to work in the postdoctoral studies and continue science part-time, full-time, find help at home? Or was it the lack of good health that made you think of a longer sabbatical? What was the plan when motherhood came on?
No, it was more the former. I did think, right now we're talking about 2 kids aged 6 and 4. They need you 24/7.
Yes.
But I said, sooner or later, they're going to grow up. And once they get into middle school, I will get back to science. Because by then we had moved back. We had also, we were in and out of the city for my husband's fellowship training and so on. So no point both mom and dad disappearing on the kids. So I decided to take a step back and be with the girls. So once we moved here, by here I mean Long Island, this is a suburb of New York, I started teaching with the idea that once they're in middle school, they're not going to need me, little naive me. That's what I'm thinking, that kids in middle school don't need their moms. I will go back to science. But by the time that phase arrived, I was neck deep in dance, and I was having a good time. I was enjoying myself. I mean, what better way to live your life than to be dancing with your girls and their friends? Every evening, I'm dancing with my girls and their friends. What better thing in life, for a mom? So I was enjoying myself, loving it. Numbers were going through the roof, got to a point where I had to put a stop. I've said, not taking any more students. I had to literally drive that wedge and say no more, And I opened another branch in the next county. We are in Nassau County. I opened a branch in Suffolk County, numbers pouring there too. Yeah, so I realized that this was a good thing. Maybe I was meant to do this. Even then, if you had told me 20 years, I wouldn't have believed it. I'm thinking, okay, while we're having fun, let's continue. Yeah. And did I miss science? I did not miss science. That's the other thing. I did not miss science at all. So go figure. Yeah.
They say that life is what happens while we are busy planning. And yes. Life had such a beautiful plan for you. So now when your dance school started, you did it for your girls, their friends dancing. When did it formally become a school? Like, how did you set out to make it a formal school and take it to the different second center that you just shared? How did this entire structure fall in place?
Right. Oh, almost right away, I realized that I'm going to have to formalize this because this is New York. There's nothing that you can do without the correct paperwork and the correct, credentials to show for it. So I registered the school, gave it a name, first of all. A name happened. Then we registered the school almost right away. I would say within 2 years of me starting. It was 2003. It was 2003. Even though I was teaching since 2001, it was in 2003 that we formally registered the school. We came up with the name of Mudra Dance Studio. I always wanted Mudra-related term. So Mudra Dance Studio happened. And I can tell you this, though. I can tell you this. In terms of being formal and all, from day one, when I had just Tanya and her best friend, Kanika, I had just 2 students, I was very formal about it. As in, we would start, if it was a 4 o'clock class, We would start at 4 sharp, end at 5 sharp. It wasn't a casual thing that mama's teaching and I'm hanging out with my best friend. It wasn't like that. We would start at 4, end at 5, even when we had just 2 kids. To this day, we start at 4.00, class begins. If kids are 2 minutes late, they text me and let me know that they're 2 minutes late, that particular about timing. So that sense of discipline had been there from day one. And very soon I realized that, kids just come, quite a few kids come from school, from their regular school. So they show up in whatever. So then we had a uniform protocol, a dress sense. So I went with the strawberry and cream combination. So they wore maroonish kurtas with the off-white churidar. In fact, that ended up being the dance, ended up being the studio theme, color theme. My website and everything has that color theme, strawberry and cream. Yeah, so right from the get-go, that's how it's been. Yeah.
Wow, wow. So the way you are putting this in place, and punctuality, every Mumbaiker has to be punctual, otherwise they kind of miss the train. And the lifeline of Bombay, it's like 8:52, you have to be there, because whether you're not there or not, the train is there at 8:52. So when it comes to the factor of time, and you see today's kids, is it something that we as parents need to instill? Is it the school where they go to study that instills it? Is it these kind of classes that instill it? Where does the value of time come?
All around. But I think it starts with us. It starts with us as parents, as teachers. Schools are regular schools are inherently very time specific. So that's not a problem. Buses come on time. Everything starts on time. It's the, like dance class, for example, would be considered an extracurricular activity. Now, if I started 5 minutes late, good Lord, even 2 minutes late, next thing you know, 2 minutes becomes 3, 4, 5, 10, so I need to be very, very tight on that, because there will be some kids who have shown up. Somehow their parents have managed to bring them here on time. So you're doing an injustice to those kids if I delay the time. So that is almost a hallmark of how we do things here, including our shows, Rashmi, including our shows. At 5, if the invite says 5 p.m., 5:00, curtains open. No question about it, no matter what. I say if there are 5 people in the audience, so be it. We open it. And now that people know, they're there 45 minutes prior to get the best seats and so on and so forth. Everybody knows that. So I'm proud to say that's a hallmark of how we do business.
Wow, this is something that's really good. And I think it's an important element, because time is one resource we cannot beg, borrow, or steal. And when it's inculcated very early on in life, for the child who's grooming herself, I think she values a lot of other things that come with punctuality. So kudos to you. When we are talking about Mudra Dance Studio, you started doing performances with the students. What was there an annual recital that the students go through that parents started coming to? How did the dance school go on? Because you told us now science has slowly taken the backseat and dance became your full-time focal point. So how did the progress happen? 20 years is a long time. So what happened in the 20 years? How did you change as a person?
Oh, wow. That's a lot of questions in one question. First of all, as far as recitals are concerned, it's just a thing now that you have to have a year-end recital. Growing up, mind you, it was never like a year-end recital. Whenever the Guruji thought the time was right, we have a production ready, we would present it. But now everything is more become, even in India for that matter, not just here, there's something called a year-end recital. I don't do it at the end of 1 year. We do it at the end after every year and a half, because our productions are really huge, humongous. It's just not feasible to be doing it every year. So the first show happened in the September of 2004 was our very first annual recital. And since then, the title then was Shivoham. 45 students participated. That was our very, very first show. It was first for me, first for the students, for the parents, for everyone, And you learn learn a lot. You learn a lot from starting off small. And then it went on, it moved on. The second one was Devi, an ode to Mother Goddess. We made that as a Mother's Day show, Mother's Day offering. I'm sorry, that was the third one. The second one was to do with Krishna. Leela, the play of Krishna. That was the name. And that was a Father's Day offering. And so the mom said, hey, what about us? So the following recital was Devi, Mother Goddess. We made it a Mother's Day offering, that sort of thing. So things just kind of evolved. And over the years now, we've had so many shows. I could not even start naming them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Two things about our shows. One is there's always a theme and there's always a cause, because that's been over the years. To answer your second question, how did you change? So I got a dream. I caught a dream along the way that, and that was to combine my love of dance with an element of giving back. And I was trying to see, because dance in itself is not a major money-making thing, as you can imagine. So, we were trying to see how to combine that with a form of giving back. And that was the germ of an idea that took root and went on to form the Mudra Foundation, which is a nonprofit. So the Mudra Foundation is the nonprofit behind Mudra Studio. Yeah. So now through the foundation, every time we hold a program, a show, we highlight one particular cause. Yeah, we use our platform to showcase that particular cause, and then it ends up becoming a fundraiser for the cause, as well as an awareness campaign for the cause. Because there are such wonderful causes around the globe and very locally that people are not necessarily aware of. So this is our time.
Okay, so when you talk about dance studio to foundation and foundation working with a cause in mind, where did you said that this was prompted by the thought of giving back, and that's how these causes came in play. So when you're conceiving a show, how do you decide the theme as a person who's the producer of the whole thing, the designer of the whole thing? How do you decide on the theme? What prompts you to decide that? Is it something which is current, topical, or something that you always wanted to do? How do you pick on a theme for a cause?
Rashmi, it's a question I've asked myself. How does this idea come to me? Because I feel like I'm not doing it. I feel like somebody's planting the idea in my head, and I'm just following through, It's a question I've asked myself also. I've had these discussions with my husband. I said, look, this is what I already know what I want to do for my next show. I'm not telling you now, but I already know what, and I'm thinking, how did it come? I was just walking my dog one day and I'm like, this is what we have to do. How did it come? I don't know. And that's what you'll hear artists talk about this. This is a premonition. It's a serendipity. It's, how does this happen? I don't know. And then even the cause, sometimes it aligns perfectly and sometimes it doesn't, but it somehow works. I'll give you an example. Soon after the pandemic, we did put together a show. This was October of 21. I already had the cause in mind. This was, it's a long story, but long story short, a place called Hewlett House. It is organized by a wonderful lady called Jerry Barish. She has spent a lifetime dedicated to breast cancer survivors, promoting their, how should I put it? Hewlett House is a place basically for breast cancer survivors, and they have support systems of all kinds. They have psychologists there, they have other therapists, they have music therapy, they have doctors coming and giving them talks, they have support groups with other cancer survivors sitting together and exchanging views, and all for free. And she gets aids from the government and from the county and everything. In fact, even this structure, this building, Hewlett House, was donated by the government, by the county. It was donated to Jerry Barish. Amazing lady. So for a couple of years now, I've had it in mind that I'd like to do a show for Jerry Barish's Hewlett House. Now, it so happened that we designed this. It had to happen in October because we were just coming out of the pandemic. So it had to happen in October. And guess what? October turned out to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And it just fit. I said, I never planned it like that, but it just fit, to give you one example. So things just work out. Another more recent example I'll tell you is this year, a few months ago, in the month of May, was our next show. And we'd already thought of the theme as dance as meditation. Preksha. Preksha was the theme. Preksha is a form of meditation, and how dance is actually, Bharatanatyam is a form of meditation. So we were going with that. We were playing on that. And it turned out the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So our cause became a mental health related organization called Long Island Crisis Center. We invited them to talk about their programs and so on, and it became an awareness campaign for them. I did not plan it, So just to give you an example, things happen, they just fall in place. I guess when your heart is in the right place, when you're setting out to do something in your own small, humble way, the universe aligns we've had talks about this in the past, about how the universe aligns to bring your ideas to fruition. So it's as simple as that. I don't have any major, process here that this is how I do, this is what I do. It just happens. Yeah.
This is beautiful. And when we talk about things just falling in place, what I want to ask you is about dance and the students who come to you. Do you have any stories about certain students? Maybe you don't name them, but about certain students which have stayed with you and told you that this is the purpose of your life at that point of time?
Many, Rashmi, many. And in fact, one of the joys of my life is the fact that I'm able to introduce this dance to these kids who are so far removed from their roots, and in such a beautiful way for them to connect with their roots, and for that to be a part of my life is, I'm grateful for that, So when you're talking about how the kids take it, I feel it's both ways. I feel so privileged that I'm able to teach these kids, Now, these are kids who are born here. More often than not, their parents are born here, especially now, the current generation of parents, and the parents are born and brought up here. So I'm teaching like the third generation students now. There are so many stories that come to mind. Let me tell you this. There's this one kid, I won't mention her name, though I don't think she would mind. She was prepping for her Arangetram, worked really hard. She spent almost 7 or 8 years with me, worked really, really hard. Invites were done, sent out, program was printed, everything was set. The 1 week prior to her Arangetram, while practicing, she stumbles, trips, falls, and ends up with a fracture. 1 week prior. And 2 weeks from then, she was going away to college to Boston. What do we do, right? Mom is upset, the kid is upset, everyone's upset. The doctors mentioned there's no way she's going to be able to walk, never mind dance. She won't be walking for the next 3 months. What do you do? But this, we thought this was it. Usually in this country, when kids go away to college, it's pretty much done. You're saying bye-bye to them, unlike in India, where I think for the most part, kids, I know I stayed at home for the longest time, but that vidai, like we say in India, when a girl gets married and leaves, that's the kind of vidai we have here when kids go away to college. Because now it's pretty much, they're gone. So what do you do? But this girl was so determined. She went to college, and whenever, once she was able to practice, she got back to her practice. From college, she would practice, send me videos of her practice sessions. So this is before Zoom, mind you. This is I'm talking about before the pandemic. Now it's common to be doing online. She would just record her practice sessions, send them to me. And and there's no room. She doesn't have room to practice. Those dorms are so tiny. But she just proved that where there's a will, there's a way. And she did go on to have her Arangetram a whole year later than planned. Yeah, a whole year later than planned, but she ended up doing it, So while she was thanking me profusely, I'm thanking her profusely, for giving me this opportunity to see a little, kid blossom like that with so much confidence. So yeah, there are many, many stories. Yes.
Wow, this is so powerful because moments like these are life-changing for the individual, but more than anything else for the teacher. It's a beautiful space of the metamorphosis happening right in front of your eyes. That little girl now actually becoming the woman that she's meant to be with this entire process. And talking about processes, reflection, and metamorphosis, the pandemic was one such where all of us were forced to change our attitudes. We were forced to go indoors. And when we went indoors, we started exploring inwards. A lot of it came out for a lot of us. This podcast by itself was born in the pandemic for me, where you and I was around the uniqueness and individuality each of us carry. So exploring that, it's the Human Library podcast where we discover how each one of us has it within. It's only the journey inwards that gets us talking about it and reaching out to the goal that we set out. So what did the pandemic do for you? Because you were like so well drafted with your day, your time all cut out to centers, everything doing so well. But suddenly lockdowns. What did the pandemic do to you? What are your reflections from the pandemic?
So like everywhere else in New York, things kind of came to a grinding halt mid-March. Of course, classes stopped, dances stopped. And at the time, everyone thought it was just a matter of a few weeks, maybe a month or so, right? So we stopped. We just stopped classes. But then I started getting calls from parents saying, can you please do something? Because moms were going nuts having kids at home. Could you please do something? And like all dance teachers around the globe, we were clueless about how do you teach dance over a medium like this. It's one thing to learn math and science over Zoom, but how do you do dance? Even music, chalo, one can understand. But how do you teach dance like this? But that's the ingenuity of the human mind. We as a species, we pivot, we figure it out, and we get the job done. So likewise, beginning of April, we started having classes by Zoom. And again, speaking of time commitment and all that, everything remained the same. The 5 o'clock class started at 5 o'clock. There were no changes to a student's schedule. They would come to class wearing their full uniform, exactly like a regular class. But the only difference, they were now in their individual homes. And I would teach. I would go down to the studio. So it was almost like a regular class. Was it fantastic? Obviously not. But it was not bad. That's all I'll tell you. We were not moving at 60 miles an hour. We were moving at 30 miles an hour, but at least we were moving forward. And kids were not stuck. And now, much later, looking back, thank God we did it, because the pandemic just went on and on and on and on. So for a good 15 months, we continued via Zoom for a good 15 months. Yeah. And at the end of that, it was in September of 21, where once schools reopened, regular schools reopened, that I opened shop here and had students come in person. But then we would have classes outdoors. I have a little space on the deck outside the house. So we would have outdoor classes. The weather was still pretty decent at that time. Kids loved it. They absolutely loved it. And we would hold classes there. And soon after that, after barely 7 weeks of in-person classes, we put up a show, the one that I'm talking about for Jerry Barish's Hewlett House. And it was amazing. Even parents, friends, families, they could not believe that these are Zoom-trained kids. who are just a few short 7 weeks later, they're ready to go up on stage. The other interesting thing is we did not lose a single student during the pandemic. Not once, 100% of them came back. And, I felt we must have done something right then.
So I'm very curious, Dr. Arti, what is it that drives you?
Passion is an overrated term. I don't want to use the word passion, but I feel dancing is something that is, I feel so one with it. So one with it. It's just me. I'm not a singer. I'm not a painter. I'm not a whole lot of other things, but I'm a dancer. And just the love of sharing that with students who want to learn. Now, mind you, this is not Bollywood. What I'm teaching is classical, which is not the easiest style, and in today's day and age, these kids who this is a social media age.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame from even 10 years ago. Students I'm facing now are a completely different ballgame. Not just me, all teachers, whole other ballgame. And to have them come in and commit to dance, commit to learning, it doesn't happen easily, right? Mostly they come in because their moms want them to learn, which is fine, because which 7-year-old knows what is Bharatanatyam? Who knows it? I did not know. I went because my mom took me to class. And once you go there, things clicked. So I'm very happy to be in that space of sharing this art form with everybody. Yeah.
Wow.
That is so far away.
Yeah.
That's my drive. Yeah.
That's so true. The pandemic actually made us pause. It forced us into a pause, made us think what we can give. And a lot of us came up with different things that we can give. And talking about giving, time for 3 life lessons, Dr. Arti, that you'd like to leave us with.
3 life lessons. Yeah, I've been thinking about this. Well, I'll tell you the 3 things that I often mention to my students and to my kids. Number 1, I would say, is whatever worth doing is worth doing well. Otherwise, why bother? Why bother with anything? Might as well sit and watch Netflix, binge on that. But if you're taking the time and trouble to go somewhere to learn something and do something, then do it well. Hold yourself to a higher standard at any given time. I always say, between talent and hard work, at the end of the day, it's hard work that wins. And I've seen this time and time again. Talented students with this much work, not that talented students, but with this much work, it's always the one who does the hard work. They are the ones who win. So whatever worth doing is worth doing well, I would say. The other thing I like to say is, each one of us is unique, right? So accept yourself. Accept yourself for who you are, And that said, be the best version of yourself. Be truly, you do you, as they say, as kids say these days. You do you be the best yourself. Carl Jung, the noted psychologist, he had said, the privilege of a lifetime is to be who you truly are.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point, it's joyous, and if you're able to do something that you're truly good at, the joy that you get from it is 100-fold. You do you. Accept yourself. Wow. There was a saying, there was a quote. In fact, I've written it down so I can read it without messing it up. And it says, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So
I think Albert Einstein said this, no?
Einstein is wrongly quoted. He never said it.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
They often
attribute this to Albert Einstein.
Wasn't him, and nobody knows who said it. But it's smart. It's truly
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, I would say attitude. Is not one of the things, but it's everything, man. Attitude is it. It's everything. every one of us is going to fall flat on our face sooner or later. But it's important to, the person who ends up at the finish line is the one who gets up, dust yourself off, and move on. That's important. Falling down is not a big deal. It happens to everybody. I have a little quote outside my studio entrance, and it says, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain, And that's something I truly believe. Along the same lines, there is this other line. It's a line from a song which says, everywhere you go, carry your weather with you. You be the light in the room. You be the person walking into the room where people say, thank you for coming, not thank you for leaving. So I would say these three are my...
Beautiful, beautiful. And you truly are the light in the room that you go into. And if over the years you've made a difference with so many kids following a voice within you that you pursued, stayed in touch with, and continue making a difference in the lives of all those girls who come into your studio, I know you're creating magic. Honored to have had you on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. It was such a pleasure. In India, September 5th is Teachers' Day, and
Yes.
a teacher plays a very important role for the students. Even if you're teaching an art form to a student, there's a lot about who the student is that gets modified because of the influence of the teacher. And I'm sure over the last 20 years, the number of students who must have been inspired by you, I'm sure maybe some of them have expressed it, many of them may not have, and subtly the difference must have happened. But teachers like you make a difference, Dr. Arti. Thank you so much. God bless you. And continue.
Likewise for you. You are a source of inspiration to so many people. I know that for a fact. And as always, great talking to you. Great conversation we have every single time. And keep on keeping on, girl.
Thank you. Bye and take care.
Bye-bye.
With that, we come to the end of this weekly quest of You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Do let us know if you know people who make the world beautiful. Write in to rashmi.thethirdeye@gmail.com. That is rashmi.thhirdeye@gmail.com. Come, let's explore this amazing world together, both you and I.